Welcome. You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast hosted by Michelle Zellner and Sasha Berscheid. Michelle and Sasha are here to give you information and inspiration to help you live your healthiest, happiest lives. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Greetings and welcome to the Be a Better Being podcast. I am Michelle Zellner, your host, and I am here with Sasha today. Always a pleasure to see your beautiful face, darling. How are you?
No, it's my favorite time of the week, recording time.
I agree. It's so fun to have conversations with you, and I think this one is going to be interesting. We've actually touched a little bit on some of the topic in our various stories that we've shared. But as we are dropping this episode on America's Independence Day, I thought it would be just a fun conversation to talk about independence in general. Like, what role does you being an independent woman play in your life? How do you even define independence? And certainly I will share my thoughts on that as well. But let's dive into just overarching theme of independence. When you hear that word or being independent, what does that even mean to you?
I actually had some difficulty even defining that. And that's why when I reached out to you, what was it, like a week and a half ago? I was like, what do you mean independence? Like, what do you mean independence? And for the last week and a half of trying to digest that question, what does independence mean to you? Michelle, the only thing I can come up with, the only thing that I feel independent from is alcohol. The only thing that I can associate independence from dependence is my sobriety. And I cannot even begin to express in words what that independence, that new life means to me, the gift of life that independence from alcohol has given me. And yes, I'm so thankful to live in America. Yes, I'm so thankful to be a woman with a voice. But more than anything that I am equipped with, that I own, that I am personally responsible for, it is my sobriety. And that is just purely independence. I finally am not drowning in alcohol.
And you're actually coming up on a big celebration, right? Is it going to be 8 years soon?
Yeah, that's just, I mean, I know you didn't know me. I didn't know me then, but 8 years, 8 entire fully strong 365 days together times 8 of being alcohol free. And it has completely and drastically changed my life. Like night and day, 180 degree, complete different individual from who she was when she was suffocating in alcohol.
Well, I think that is such a beautiful way of describing your relationship to independence, because obviously the complete opposite is dependence. So maybe we explore that. Like, when you were dependent upon alcohol, why? What was your need to depend on something? And then breaking free from it, how it changed your life?
Mine, what I'm noticing is, and this is like onion layers deep, right? This isn't like I'm almost 8 years sober and it has just now dawned on me. I was self-medicating because of traumas in my past, feelings that I didn't want to feel. And when I really think about it, my favorite time of being alive was when I was sleeping, but my sleeping was so disturbed that the only way I could get to such a deep level of sleep would be to get like blackout drunk. And there's no recovering from that. You can't just get blackout drunk day after day after day after day and then expect to wake up feeling amazing and awesome and free and not full of depression or anxiety and being financially responsible and being a good friend and being a good sister and all these things. No, I was so dependent on alcohol that I would wake up at 6 a.m. with shakes and tremors and have to take a shot and then continue to do so at 8 and 10 and 12 and so on and so forth until I passed out at night because I was wanting to numb and not feel or not face a single thing in life. And so the day that I decided to get sober, or the day that I guess I should say God decided to get me sober and that I begged for mercy and to change my life, was a day of pure independence. It was a day where I had finally won and there was victory, and I could finally see the end of the tunnel, because I knew that I would never have to feel that way again. I would never have to be suffocated. I would never have to drown. I would never have to be engulfed in all of the worry and fear and anxiety and depression that was caused and continued to be caused by alcohol.
And I think, like anything else, when you make the choice, or in your case, it was made for you, it is breaking free of these anchors, these chains that are holding us back. But there's also probably a degree of fear, right? Because there is comfort in the known. So, as yucky as all of that was, I'm sure being independent from alcohol was also yucky and scary at first while you go through that process.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You're all of a sudden going from this crutch and this staple where you can use as an excuse, really, to why are you acting and saying and doing these things that you're doing, and just not living your best life, to all of a sudden being fully accountable for where you are now. But then you also have to go and unpack and deal with all of the repercussions for your actions and all of the words that you've said and all of the things that you have done and the people that you have hurt. And then now all of a sudden it's like, oh no, there's so much to deal with. And so, yeah, the independence of alcohol has completely changed my life and has allowed me to be accountable and to own my actions, even when they're not fun actions. Instead of waking up and getting a text message or a phone call that's asking me if I'm alive and responding back saying, what did I do last night? Did I say anything? Who do I need to apologize to? Now I just wake up knowing I got stuff to handle. I have stuff to do, and it's up to me to make it happen.
Yeah. So independence is freedom, right? I mean, it's freedom to do the things that you want to do, also freedom to do the things that you need to do. I think sometimes, we think independence is, oh, just living this solo life and, not needing help or wanting help, but just going along as a solo human. I would say, obviously, I've only known you for a little over a year, but I love that you equate independence to your breakup with alcohol forever. You are such an independent thinker. You are independent with your growth. You're independent with the way you choose to spend your energy. I don't ever, not from the day one I met you, see you as just somebody who follows along.
I remember one time as a kid, they would always play like these videos in our classes or whatever. And they showed this one documentary. It was just like a showing a science project or whatever it is, psychology project. And I was in like elementary school, and they showed people who, when the first person would answer the question or the objective, then all of a sudden the 4 or 5 people would also follow suit. And I remember even as a child thinking, but like, why would you do that? Like, why would you just follow? And so for me, I think there's nothing wrong with when people say being a sheep, right? Because that's also comfortable, knowing that if you're doing it, someone else is doing it. For me, I find comfort in doing something on my own, whether I win or I fail, at least like it's on me. And so having that sense of independence has always been something that I grew up with. Even watching those videos, they didn't strike a chord with me. I was just like, I don't want to do those things. I want to do what feels good to my nervous system. And even today, and in this day and age, that has never been more important to console my nervous system, and like, who am I going to be around, and what am I going to do, and who am I going to actually spend my time with. And you're right, that is a definition of independence in itself. And so just your question of, what does independence mean to you? It is multifaceted. For you, being an independent is, that INDPEENDENT, strong, independent woman. But like for me, I am independent in finding my soul. And for you, you have been nothing but independent, a strong,
That's
independent
not
woman,
entirely true, actually. Interestingly enough, I was born 3 weeks past my due date. Now, they don't do that anymore. They don't allow that. But I actually did not want to leave the womb, apparently. However, once I was out, I mean, you ask my parents, they will tell you, oh, she wants to do everything on her own. So I would think that, oh, I didn't want to leave. So I would be this totally needy, clingy, codependent child who could never leave her mother's side. It was the complete opposite. I want to do everything on my own. Do not try to help me. I'm going to do it. So I did have that independent nature. But somewhere along the line, that got squashed. It really did. I think it just, as you grow and develop and you're around certain people and you start seeing certain things and you don't have the confidence, or maybe somebody, in my case, a particular girl in school, put some beliefs in my head that were totally not true, but I didn't know any better. And so it really started to chip away at my sense of self. And I did become a sheep. I was a follower. I was not that girl who was going to speak up first at all. And that probably didn't really come back until mid to late 20s. Even though I did a lot of independent things, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll notice I'm not wearing blue today. That was very intentional. And this is showing my sign of independence, because hot pink growing up was my favorite color. In fact, you can maybe see a little hot pink Volkswagen at the foot of at Penny's feet there. My dad rebuilt Volkswagens for a hobby, and when he was building my sister's and I would be helping, he would say, well, honey, what color are you going to want yours? Oh, hot pink. My dad was like, okay, sure. She'll change her mind in a couple of years. Well, the time came, honey, what color do you want it? I had a bottle of hot pink nail polish. This is it. Okay, I guess we're having a hot pink car. Well, I lived in a very, very, very tiny town. There are no hot pink cars anywhere. Okay. We're not talking like, Baja, California. We're talking Winneconne, Wisconsin. So everybody knew that's Michelle. There's Michelle. So, to stand out. And I didn't really do it with the intention of standing out. I just loved hot pink and I wanted a hot pink car. Michelle, where are you going to?
I think that's also, sorry, not to interrupt, but I think that's a very important keynote that we need to sit on for a second here. It is not about standing out. It is, being independent has nothing to do with attention seeking. It has nothing to do with standing out, at least for sure in our situations, right? But it's about finding our me, your you, what's right for your nervous system, and saying, okay, I own this so much that this is me. I am independent and I own this.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people will do it through their hairstyle or through their clothing or the way they wear their makeup. Or, I think about even just growing up girls in school who wore really different outfits. It was like, ooh, that's bold, right? That's daring. And yet in their eyes, it wasn't. That's just what they liked. And they didn't want to, get the normal clothes that everybody else was getting at the same store. They wanted something different and unique. So finding that uniqueness, and being comfortable in your uniqueness, I think is something that as we grow and develop as humans from a very early age, it either is supported and nurtured or it gets squashed. And sometimes it can happen both at the same time from various places. I mean, my parents always supported our independence. My sisters, my mom, mine. My parents themselves were very independent. My dad left home at a very young age to join the Air Force. My mom, I mean, the minute she found that American GI, she was hightailing it to the U.S. Very independent in our beliefs and in just the way we go about life, and yet we're also still very connected and very supportive and very close. So it's that balance of dependency and independency. I think that, like so many things, is necessary. Obviously, when it comes to something like sobriety, there is no gray area. Some people can consume alcohol and not be dependent on it, right? So some things, clearly there is no gray area, but for a lot of it, it's finding the balance of dependence and independence, and understanding when each is helpful, when each is necessary, and maybe when we are at one extreme or the other, how that might actually be, at our detriment.
And not only at our detriment, right? It might not even be us. This might be something that was generationally passed down, perhaps a religion or a belief system. Or, I was just thinking about how a gal and I, who had gone to the same school, the same private school from kindergarten until I left in ninth grade, what independence, like her body, her sexuality, her femininity, what she consumed versus like what I consumed. Because I was like, I want to wear earrings. I'm going to wear earrings. If I want to chew gum, I'm going to chew gum and all this stuff. And so I was very independent in my thinking. Whereas, I sculpted myself. She allowed that religious or that school and the system to help mold her. So as an adult now, I watch her in her own independence being more free than she probably had ever anticipated herself to be. And I wouldn't say exposing herself, but just being herself, right? And finding her femininity and her fluidity and all these things. And I look at that as, yes, I'm so glad that she is stepping into her light, where a lot of the other women or the other persons that are still part of that religion shun her and say, how dare you do X, Y, and Z, or wear X, Y, and Z, or have jewelry or whatever it is. And it's like, she's just finding herself. She's finding her independence. There's not a right or wrong here. As long as she's not hurting anyone, let her be. And so, independence in itself is a very deep and multifaceted word.
Yeah, and it can be a scary place to be. I mean, by nature, we are pack animals. We're designed to be dependent upon each other, actually. And so it can be scary to be that one that steps out and does something different. And yet, if it's true to who you are, your core principles, your values, the things that you want to express, or your beliefs, it's it's having the confidence to step into the things that could be scary, because now we're going to face judgment. We might face failure. We might face ridicule. We might face, letting somebody down. I mean, there are all kinds of things and reasons why maybe we don't embrace independent thought or independent behavior, but there's safety in numbers, right? And that's why maybe it's easier to just kind of stay at the back of the class and let somebody else raise their hand, or be the first to speak up. When you talked about the show about why everybody would just follow along, that reminds me, actually, when I was at school at UH in psychology, and this is an experiment that probably everybody in psychology has ever done, where the group of us goes outside and we just designate two people to look up at the sky, and the rest of us are observing how many people walking by are looking up at the sky because they see other people doing it, and everybody does it, right? Because, well, they must be looking at something, right? There must be a reason they're looking. I should look up too. And it is interesting. I've always been fascinated by human behavior and those kind of things. They're normal. This is what we do as humans. But when you start thinking about, why do I follow? Why did I follow this one girl and believe everything this one girl told me, when what I witnessed around me kind of showed the exact opposite? But I'm going to believe what she tells me because there was something about her that made me believe it. And then that made me start behaving differently with those other people around me. And now it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it is something that easily can be that easily molded. And so, anybody who is trying to figure themselves out, and I talk to a lot of Gen Zers and millennials, and just kind of that struggle for identity and independence and figuring it out, adulting, where do I belong? How do I break from the beliefs of my parents because they really aren't my beliefs? Or maybe they totally are, and how do I continue to nurture those beliefs? But it's the ability to come to that conclusion on your own. And that actually takes a lot of work. I think sometimes we don't want to be independent because that takes work. And it's just easier
I
to
also,
not.
yeah, it takes work, it takes guts, but then we also don't want to let our family down, let our pastors or priests or preachers or mentors, whoever that is, down. And once you realize this is something that I'm navigating through in my life, but we are humans, no one's perfect. You will be let down and you will let other people down. And so just knowing that no matter what you end up doing, it's exactly what was supposed to happen exactly at that time. There's no such thing as coincidences. And you just have to trust yourself and trust the process. And knowing what you're doing right now is exactly what it should be.
Well, I totally agree. That is one of my mottos. Whatever is happening is what is supposed to be happening, right? It's then how do we proceed once, we find that we're in the face of it, and what do we want to do? And it's scary choices, it's hard choices. Sometimes it's going to be easier than others, but it is also, I think, as I have kind of reflect on my life and literally living a very independent lifestyle, not always on purpose, but even the sport, gymnastics, that is an individual sport. Back then there was not like this team cohesiveness or team camaraderie. You were an individual and you competed as an individual, and you were judged as an individual. So I didn't even develop like that camaraderie and the team aspect in my sport that a lot of my friends who did basketball, volleyball, softball, any of the other sports that literally you are dependent upon everybody else. If you're going to win or lose, everybody wins or loses together. So that's something that even, the sport I was in for 10 years, it probably even fostered my independence even more. And yet, and then I go into college and I have to go to Hawaii, right? I can't just go somewhere normal. I have to go to Hawaii, something very different. Of course, Michelle has to do everything different. But that's where my soul wanted to be. So it was the choice I made, very much supported by my parents. And then when I realized, okay, now what? Now Hawaii's done. Now what? Oh, well, let me go to Colorado, because I met these two really amazing humans who we celebrate 30 years of friendship this year. And having a little bit of safety and comfort to, again, go somewhere new, but knowing some people made a difference. And yet I was still different, because now I'm going to go and be self-employed, right? Oh, grad school is done. Mom says, well, you're going to get a real job, right? No, I'm going to be a personal trainer. That's what I'm going to do. Well, this, was back in the 90s, before personal training was a thing. So it was a very foreign concept. And that's the joke still 30 years later or 25 years later, not bad for not having a real job. And that's coming from my mom, who is the independent one in the family. But it's scary to be on your own. You are solely responsible for everything. I can't coast. If I take a day off, I don't make money, and then I can't pay my bills. There's no such thing as just, oh, ride the clock. That doesn't work. So, going then and living this independent career path that was not my plan. It's just the way things happened organically. I have to say it's taken me a long time to come to that point of collaboration, and not necessarily being dependent on somebody, but having more fun when there's someone to do it with. And that's taken me a
I
long
agree.
time to get there. So certainly having independent nature and doing things independently has served me well. But, maybe if I come to this concept of collaboration a little sooner, maybe, who knows, maybe I'd be in a much bigger place. Not that I care. I love where I am, but it's just an interesting thought to kind of ponder.
It is an interesting thought to ponder, and I give those thoughts the thought and the time that they need. But like I had mentioned before, I have to remind myself I am exactly where I need to be, with the people around me, doing the things that I'm doing, loving myself the best that I can. This last week I had that 12-hour race, and I want to say this is my new saying for the rest of the year. I've been waiting. I've been like, I want when we did our vision boards at the beginning of the year, and I was like, why isn't anything striking me? Like, I want profoundness and I want it to just like seep off of me. And when people meet me, they're like, oh, she has this word and or, her vision board or whatever. And what I came to find out was, I am going to do the best that I can with what I have right now. And that came to me during that run. And oh my gosh, I can't tell you how much I love that saying right now in my life. And it's just perfect. And when it came to me, and it gave me the independence to accept where I am, accept where I'm not, love who I am, and love what I'm not. But I'm doing the best that I can with what I have. And I think in that in itself is a form of independence.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. I love that that came to you while you were running. That is something I talk a lot about when I teach my corporate sessions, because people have these expectations and they have this vision of what they should be doing, what they're supposed to be doing, what they want to be doing. And I remind them is you can only do what you can do. So if you do the best you can with what you currently have in your current reality, I like to say that, your current reality, not the one you wish you lived in or the one you think you live in, but the one you actually live in, that is all you can do. And yet, so often we do become dependent on this idea of what we're supposed to be doing, or the things that we should be saying and the beliefs that we are supposed to have. And if that doesn't ring true to actually who you are, then you're going to be in a significant state of discontent. So I think a lot of independence comes from understanding your core guiding principles, your values, your priorities, your goals. And we don't spend a ton of time with that, nurturing, developing, even identifying what they are. And for anybody who is maybe struggling with choices, because I counsel a lot of people, I can't leave my job because I can't leave this relationship because I can't lose weight because. No, you can, you can, you can. You're just choosing not to because. And that's okay too, right? If we are dependent on something, then let's just say, I'm dependent on this and I understand it. It's helping me in some ways. I know it's harming me in other ways, but this is where I am right now. And maybe for now, I'm okay with it. And then maybe a year from now or 5 years from now, I won't be okay with it anymore. And then I'll make the hard choice. And I think it is, again, that balance of dependence and independence. Because, here I am, I'm turning 50. And for, I don't know, 13 years, everyone's, oh, Michelle, you need to date, you need to this, you need to that, you need to. And I'm like, no, I really don't. Actually, I love my life. I love it. I love everything about it. Am I lacking anything? Honestly, at this point in time, no. In 5 years, might I be lacking and longing for that companionship? Maybe. I don't know. But I've also done the best I can to surround myself with really amazing people. And I have a thriving career. And I love the ability to do what I want to do when I want to do it with who I want to do. And that's because I'm independent, right? And yet I recognize that at some point, I might not feel this same way. So I think things ebb and flow, degree of dependence and independence. I think sometimes people project on me what they think or what they wish, right? They don't understand how I can love my independent life because they're afraid to live an independent life. But
yeah, and my takeaway from that, and this is the one thing that I don't think I've shared this before. If I have, it's too good not to share, but we need to unlearn a lot of stuff, right? And the more I learn, the more I learn that I have a lot more to learn. But it also goes the other end. I need to learn how to unlearn some of these things that have been taught by me and by society and these quote unquote norms, because they're not. They're only norms because other people have stated those norms. For me, having this sistership with you has completely transformed so many of my own personal ideologies, right? Like, It's not that you didn't want to have kids. It's just that it didn't happen. And so instead of saying, she doesn't have kids, oh my gosh, just saying, okay, she doesn't have kids. And now I see it, and I even will talk to my sisters and let them know, if you don't want to have children, you don't have to have children, or if you want to date and marry a woman, you can date and marry a woman. If you want to X, Y, and Z, these are independent thoughts, and you can unlearn what society has taught you, and you can learn what you feel is your you.
Well, I think that, I mean, that can relate to so many aspects of our lives, right? In any way. I mean, I've worked with people who literally went to law school because their parents wanted them to. That's it. Or they are in medical school because everybody's a doctor and I'm supposed to be a doctor because that's what we're supposed to do. And when you live out of alignment with who and what you truly want to do, eventually it's going to catch up to you, right? Eventually it is going to impact you at your core, physically, mentally, emotionally. The disconnect and the discontent is going to lead you to not being your best self. And then you get to come to someone like me or Sasha or listen to our podcast to learn how to unlearn, how to go about doing it differently. Because ultimately, I mean, my goal, and you and I, Sasha, have talked about this and we aligned totally on this, is for everyone to give it their best shot at this one chance that we have. And to know that you have the power, you control you, and that is it. I just taught a class right before this, and the question came in, well, how do you take time for yourself without feeling guilty from taking time away from family? Well, guilt is a choice, right? You choose to feel guilty. Now, it's a normal feeling. In our human DNA, guilt is normal. That is actually rooted in our survival mechanism. But you have to decide, is this helping you? Right? So you feel guilty because you don't want to go to medical school, but you're going to do it anyway because that's what mom and dad want you to do. You feel guilty for taking this 9 to 5 job that you were never going to take because I'm never going to work for the man. But gosh, here's real life and I have bills to pay, and as much as I want to live my passion, right now living my passion cannot help me live my life, so I'm going to go work for the man. Okay, you're choosing to feel guilty for whatever it is. When you make a decision one way or another to do one thing or another, as long as you are making it based on your core beliefs, your values, your principles that hold dear to you, and they're not harming anyone else, let's make sure we say that, and they're not harming anyone else, then you should make that choice. Otherwise, at some point, it is going to come back and it's going to be harder later, right? Hard choice now or harder later. But I think it takes a couple of those stops and starts to figure that out. And that's all part of the growth process and the learning process. And I mean, I certainly didn't learn that right away. No way. But at certain pivotal moments in life, which you've heard those stories on a previous episode, that you make one decision, your life is going to go a certain way, and you make another decision, it's going to go a very, very different way. And in many cases I could have made the other decision because that would have been easy at that moment, but I'm pretty sure it would have been harder at some point later.
I totally agree. I mean, everything that you just said is exactly my sentiments. You put it perfectly. You truly did.
That's why we are Sasha. We are not independent on this podcast. We are dependent. It's a
Very
beautiful
much so.
codependency. I love it. But again, that goes to the point of we need both, right? We need the ability to be independent, but we need to also embrace and understand when being dependent, having a partner, having support is what's right and is what's better. And that's going to look different for everybody at every point in your life. It's just the awareness of recognizing when one is serving you and when maybe being that way is not serving you, and how a little bit of the other one might actually help you.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, listen to your intuition. Listen to your you. It's like you said, at the end of the day, it's going to happen anyway. So you can't mess your you up. Just lean into her, him, they, and just find your guiding light. And it's okay to be independent. It's okay to be you.
And I will say too, and we'll just kind of wrap up on this thought. I think it's also okay to nurture someone's independence. And I talk, okay, as we all know, I am not a parent, okay? So I'm not here giving parent advice. You should do this for your kids. You should do that. However, I work with a lot of people who are really struggling to let their kids go, be independent, to let their kids live their lives, to let them make their mistakes, to let them fall down. Because I can only imagine how hard it was for my parents to see some of the yucky stuff that I went through. And they probably knew, gosh, we could have swooped in and told her not to do that. And because I have respect and a little bit of fear of letting my parents down, I probably would have listened to them. So they probably knew that they could have done that. And in some ways, in some instances, they cautioned me, they warned me, but they still let me go and make my decision. I can only imagine how yucky it is for a parent to see your kid hurt, to see your kid not succeed. But if you swoop in to prevent every one of their failures, you're really swooping in to prevent their learning opportunities. And you are not allowing them to gain that sense of confidence and independence. And
stunting their growth.
Absolutely. And in some ways, you are fostering dependency. So men, women, everybody should have a degree of independence. I want every woman to feel capable of living on her own, physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially. Everybody. I want every man to feel capable living on his own, physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially. And you see it a lot where people are afraid. They stay somewhere because they don't feel like they can do it alone. So to get to a place where you know you can do it alone, but you're choosing to not do it alone, I think is maybe the ultimate goal. I'm going to let you wrap up final thoughts, my dear, and then we will close this one out.
My final thoughts have already been echoed before earlier in this podcast, but it is, I'm giving you permission to unlearn the things that don't strike a chord with you, and to know that in life, you will always be learning. You will never reach a point where you have learned all that there is to learn and you are now a sensei or a guru. You may obtain that status, but once you've obtained that status is when you are humbled to know and realize that there is a lot more to go. So tread lightly, extend grace, love yourself, accept yourself for who you are, and do the things necessary to find your you.
Beautiful. I love it. Always a pleasure to get to bat some ideas with you. And thank you, everybody, for listening. I think you know what the drill is. It is your chance to go and be a better being.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. Michelle and Sasha hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you enjoyed the content, please help spread their message by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.